Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning and welcome to Encounter. I'm your host for today. My name is Joe Sellepack. I'm the Executive Director at the Broome County Council of Churches. Refugees, they happen in war-torn areas. And we know that the 20th century, that was last century, was one of the bloodiest on record. 21st century has also become a very bloody time for us to be alive. It seems that humanity can't get along with each other, and there are many reasons for that, some of them political, some of them economic. But we always have refugees. Refugees come in the middle of war-torn areas, and for many different reasons. And one of the stories from Christianity always has to do with Jesus being a refugee, having to flee for his life into Egypt. It's an important story for Christians. And we also know that in many ways, other religious groups also have suffered from persecution and have had to flee for their lives. So in order for us to talk a little bit about refugees and what it means, I invited some people from the Children of Abraham. So folks, let's talk about this refugee issue. How many refugees, especially Muslim refugees, are currently in the Middle East that we're kind of talking about? Does anybody know how many?
Well, out of the Syrian war, there are probably 4.7 million at least that are displaced people in Jordan, mainly in Jordan, some in Turkey, some now in Greece. They're not all Muslims either. Some of them are Christians also. Christian communities go back to the start of Christianity, so it's a multi-interfaith kind of crisis of people suffering. And this has been going on for probably 5 or 6 years, especially since the start of the war in Syria. And it's the largest refugee crisis since World War II. 4.7
million.
But there are also Iraqi refugees in the mix, Afghanis, and there are many other countries where the extremist things are happening. And so there are people who've had to flee from quite a number of countries who are mixed in as people who fled for their lives, maybe with the shirt on their back, and are now in these sort of way stations betwixt and between. And our traditions tell us also that we were strangers in the land of Egypt. Tells us that in the Exodus, and so we are to remember that we were strangers and what it was like to be strangers and to care for the stranger in our midst, and to be concerned about others. So we have many traditions and many biblical stories, many imperatives about how we need to care for others. And that's feeding the hungry, and there are many examples. As God did these things, so we are to be the extension of God in doing it as well, with feeding the hungry, with caring for the stranger, with helping the poor, the widow, the orphan. And so this idea of caring for others runs very deep with all of us, and from what we've learned in the Children of Abraham as well, it is deeply ingrained in the Muslim community as it is in the Christian and Jewish community, and in our texts and our faiths.
Well, my guests today are the Father Jim Dutko from St. Michael's.
Nice
He's no stranger to Encounter, and the Rabbi Barbara Goldman-Wartell. And Barbara, I hear this is your first time on Encounter, so
yes, it is.
Welcome to Encounter. I'm pleased to have you on. I can't imagine it being this long since since we've been able to have you on Encounter. Because you've been in the community for a long time.
Yeah, I'm in my 8th year.
8th year at Temple Concord.
At Temple Concord.
Yeah, very good. Well, it's a pleasure to have both of you on the Encounter program to talk about this important topic. So 4.7 million people that have been displaced.
That's a low estimate, by the way.
That's a low estimate. And if we're talking about right around 5 million, which is that's a lot of people.
You know, John, we're talking about whole communities of families. We're talking about little kids, young adults, young families, the elderly, people of all levels, economic stratus. I mean, could you imagine taking probably all of New York State, except New York City, and putting in some camp down in Carolina or some in tents? How do people survive? How do they live in such a situation? I mean, should anybody care about this? This is what's going on, and it's not on our shores, so sometimes it's out of sight. But it's really not out of sight because we see it on the news all the time. We hear all these stories, and so it becomes a challenge for us to have some response, at least from here, something we can do about it.
Now, where do these people end up?
Well, Jordan has had very large refugee camps for a while, but one of the problems is some of our international organizations that are set up to provide food ran short of funds and did not were not able to deliver the amount that was needed and promised. And so we had more movement of the refugees, and last summer we saw the body of a small child washed up in Greece. And I think that's when it became personal to us all. It wasn't these large numbers anymore. It was a child who could look like any of our children. And that's when it took such a personal, a human face put to it of something you never should see. It should never happen. And so I believe that's when, as a community, so many said, we can't just look the other way anymore. So the movement of people through Turkey to Greece and trying to get into different other countries in Europe happened because the services weren't able to be provided and the numbers were so large. So we've followed the different discussions, the different borders being open, closed, all the different kinds of things. Many of us before that, but particularly since last summer.
Yeah, and so we're struggling to try to figure out what we can do locally to help refugees. I know that there was a big movement last year, at the end of last year, to being an open and community for refugees to come to welcome them and accept them into Binghamton. But then there was some political debate about such being a welcoming community, and there was and so right now, I mean, if we're thinking about how can we help, what can we do, what are some practical things that we can do, and I think that's been something that the children of Abraham have been thinking about.
Well, the first thing that many of us did was we said, let's talk to the American Civic Association, since they are the local organization that deals with immigrants and refugees and welcoming them to our community. So they had enough requests from people that they set up special meetings and are trying to find ways to engage more of us in the community to be ready and equipped to help when they are settling new immigrants and refugees into our area. And some of us have already been called upon to help with that. So that's one piece. But the pipeline for people to come into this country takes 18 to 24 months.
Right.
And so while people are in that pipeline, we became interested in what can we do to help these people in the meantime, whether or not they're going to come here, somewhere else, or whether they're able to return to their homes. Here are these people in these dire conditions with matters beyond their control. And so that's when I learned of another community in the Quad Cities in Illinois and Iowa that did a meal packing program with the intention of those meals going to refugee camps to go to children and families and adults in these areas. And so we decided that we wanted to try something similarly, and so we have arranged for a meal packing event on Sunday, April 3rd. And it will be at St. Michael's starting at 1 o'clock and going till 4 or 5 in the afternoon, where we're going to be packing 30,000 meals. And they are a soy casserole kind of a meal. It's packaged for like a family of 6 to 8. So we're not packing an individual meal for each person.
Right.
But by and large, these are family units. They're not individuals. They come together in groups, apparently. And so the idea of making this and then a group of people being able to eat it is good. The meal is designed to give the people what they need who have been in starvation situations to help them with being able to digest the food and to get to a healthier place. And so our intention has been to raise the funds for the food and the packaging, and to set this up so that people from all parts of our community can actively be involved together, shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand, to do this work, to do what little we can to help these people so far away.
And the truth is that hunger should not be a political issue. It doesn't matter where one stands on an issue. Should refugees come in today or in 2 years or whatever? That's not the question. The question is, people are refugees. They are starving. They are in camps. We can respond to hunger.
Right.
We try to do it here through the local communities, through CHOW that you work with through the Council of Churches, but this is an international situation, and everyone can help in this effort. Well, everyone can do this.
And in a war-torn environment where you're leaving with the shirt on your back, there isn't an awful lot of time or even provisions in those areas enough for the people to be able to feed themselves. So they are fully reliant on whatever place they end up, right? I mean, this is...
So, and we have this event on Sunday, April 3rd in the afternoon at St. Michael's Recreation Center. We will have assembly lines where we'll have groups of people, probably 7, 8, 10 people.
I think it's 12 to 15 people in an assembly line.
In an assembly line. They will get containers of different soy and lentils and other things that go into this concoction of this mix, and they'll be weighed out and then bagged, and they'll be ready to be shipped out to these camps.
Now, St. Mike's,
but it'll involve people from all communities, I mean, of different faith traditions and non-faith traditions, people who care about doing something. At least you can do something.
You can do something, and it'll be in the gymnasium at St.
it'll be in the recreation center. And
a lot of people know that from CYO and the pierogi sales and all of that, right?
Well, this is post-pierogi, so.
Yeah, right.
Our challenge was how to organize this, and so if everyone came at the same time, we can't engage everyone. So we have set up through Sign Up Genius is a website that helps with organizing these things. You can find the link to signing up for it through our website, interfaithbroomcounty.com. We also have a Facebook page, Children of Abraham of the Southern Tier, and you can find it there as well, and the link which will get you there. Right now, we are almost full for our volunteers, but we're hoping to be able to add more lines, and then we can add more spaces for volunteers. And the other thing that we've been doing since I don't know, it's been a while now. We've been collecting funds. It's 25 cents for a meal. Per person, it's 25 cents for the meal per person. And so people have been donating funds so that we could order all of the supplies to be able to package them. There is some additional cost for shipping, so as donations come in, we will make sure that they are used appropriately for this work. We are working with the national organization called Kids Against Hunger, which has many of these kinds of things in place. They work with the NGOs on the ground and also have the materials and the access to all of it. So we didn't have to learn that part. We are interested in bringing our community together and doing the work together. We also want to, as we are concerned with hunger and starvation in these camps with the refugees, we also are always concerned with our own community. So we also are going to have a chow collection going on. So when you come, you can bring a donation for chow, and we will have information in a table as well from the Broome County Council of Churches.
I'll be there.
Yes, and also a table from the American Civic Association as well, so that you can get more information about how to stay involved and be concerned about our own community and those from elsewhere as well. And we also had the great fortune, a friend of mine from Ithaca, Mirit Hadar, who used to live here in the Binghamton area, spent 2 weeks of her winter break in Lesbos, Greece, doing international relief work. She was there with IsraAid, which is an Israeli international humanitarian organization, and her stories and pictures and all are amazing of the work that she did with an interfaith group from Israel who were there at the boats, and some were inflatable rafts. They aren't even boats. And in the different refugee camps there. So we will be able to hear from someone who was actually there doing that work. She teaches at Ithaca College, and is very excited to be joining us and helping us really put that human face on it. And the whole thing, we believe, in terms of us being people to people. It's all about relationships. So when we roll up our sleeves and we do this work together, what we're creating as a caring community is so important.
Yeah.
I think it's really important in Binghamton because we are a community of peoples who've come from many places around the world. I mean, you don't have to dig too deeply in anybody's roots, whether it's first, second, third generation, fourth generation. We are a community of people who know what it had meant to be an immigrant and many to be refugees. I mean, this is our story. And this is an opportunity for all of us, regardless of where we came from, our roots, ethnically, religiously, whatever, to make an impact together. And what a blessing for us.
It is. And my guests today are our father, Jim Dutko, and Rabbi Barbara Goldman-Wartell. And we're talking about refugees and our response to them. Now, it is happening on April 3rd, which is also an anniversary.
Memories.
Yeah,
yes.
It invokes many memories for many different people. That is the date of the ACA shooting for those of us who live here in Binghamton, and that was the day when 12 people were murdered, and we ended up with one man who was mentally ill who took his life in the course of shooting, and it happened at the American Civic Association.
Which is dealing with refugees and immigrants in our area.
And the people, most of them were in classes learning English because it was not their native language, and they went there to get skills for citizenship and for becoming acclimated here, which is the work we can do in helping to welcome and absorb and help people make that transition to be active, contributing members of our community. It was 8 years ago, and when 13 families had lost their life, there is some question if the reason when we talk about violent crimes in our country, the ACA is not listed with all the other ones, is because most of the people who lost their lives were new to this country.
They were.
And so, so many were more connected from where they had come, and we're just starting to be connected here. So while we remember it all of us who were here, I think in many ways it is quite a tribute that we're going to be spending a good part of that day being concerned about the other and about caring for people who are far away from us now, and expressing that concern. At the same time, the American Civic Association will be having a memorial service from 4 to 6 that afternoon at the American Civic Association. So it can be a very full day. Marit Hadar will be speaking at 2:30 at St. Michael's in the rec center while we're doing the packing, and we start from 1 and we'll go until we've packed 30,000 meals for 30,000 people.
Wow.
So some of us may not get to the memorial service, but we will have a moment of silence during the course of the programming as well, because it is such a strong connection. And the other piece that happened when we were gathered in December, and there was this work to state us as a welcoming community, and the City Council wasn't ready to take that position in Binghamton, but all of us who were there at those meetings and signing the petitions and who were at that City Council meeting that night came away feeling very interconnected and supported, that we are a welcoming community and a caring community for one another, those of us already here, and for those who will come.
Right.
And so our actions and how we are interconnected says a tremendous amount, probably much more than any piece of paper might have anyway.
Right.
And so a great deal positive was accomplished through that work.
And the date, April 3rd, was not chosen specifically because it was the anniversary.
No.
However, it is for us a reason for us trying to welcome strangers. It would mean, for my faith, it would give a positive spin to whatever outcome that day may actually arise in people. I remember for me, it was a Friday, and I remember I was at a staff retreat, and all of our cell phones went off at exactly the same time, and we were in Sky Lake, and I just remember the day shifts, like for me after that. We had the interfaith services, and then there were, well, the initial response with people trying to find out if their loved one was okay, and us trying to arrange for interpreters to come in and usually